Welcome, friends, to Inspire Movement. My name is Caesar. Thank you for joining us. This is a space dedicated to promoting the love of self, the love of others, and love for our planet. We're beginning a series of segments dedicated on the topic of purpose. So today we're being joined by Iren Rainey, my friend, 10 years ongoing now, sir.
Definitely.
Trained my son 10 years ago. And he's an NBA player development consultant, a mental performance strategist, as well as an influencer and soon-to-be author. So thank you, sir.
Yep, thanks for having me.
It's a true honor and pleasure to have you here in this beautiful ambiance, beautiful place that we're in. And tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, maybe a little bit of your backstory, whatever you're willing to share with our viewers. It's just an honor and a pleasure to have you here, man.
Absolutely. Obviously, you know me as a NBA player development consultant. Before that, I played at the highest level professionally outside of the NBA from a young age. I was born in North Carolina, but I've moved all over the world globally. My mom ended up having a opportunity to work overseas in Europe, and I ended up living in England for about 8 years. After Europe, I came back to play for one of the national high school basketball powerhouses, Oak Hill Academy, in which we won a national championship there. And from there, I just lived almost everywhere in the U.S. So
you've been all around the globe.
definitely.
Basically global influence to your life. In this sort of segment that we're doing, we're talking about purpose. And as you know, I've reached out to you in many conversations after our basketball practices with my son. You've also helped me with some of my community involvement with Rise Up Athletics.
Correct.
And, very gracious for your involvement in that, honestly, because I know that's something that you don't need to do.
Right. Thank you.
But I've always been influenced positively by what I've seen on the court, by what you've engendered onto my sons and the young men that you've influenced through my community partnerships. Talk to us a little bit about purpose. Maybe some early influences that you may have had, whether it be here or abroad. Has anybody really engendered certain values on your person that has allowed you to become the person that you are today?
Definitely. First and foremost, that word purpose is pretty profound to me. I'm a firm believer that purpose is living with intent. There's so many of us drifting as adults, as kids, as athletes, as entrepreneurs, as workers in corporate America, and oftentimes we don't have a reason for why we do what we do. We're just drifting, we're just living, and we end up becoming creatures of habit. I'm a firm believer that you have to have a bigger vision of yourself, and you have to have a bigger reason for why you do what you do in order to not be just good at it, but also be exceptional and become an exceptional individual in our society. Within the game of basketball is where I try to leave and have the biggest impact, because there's so many people that play the game just to play the game and not playing the game with the purpose, but they want significant results, but they end up underachieving based on not playing with purpose. And so one of the things that I've tried to pierce the game of basketball with is figuring out and identifying why you play the game. And once you do that, you can end up overachieving and exceeding expectations.
Well said. So what are some tools that you yourself put into practice for your day-to-day activities to give you sort of that mental focus and sharpness as you do your day-to-day things?
Applied to my life over the last probably 10 years is the practice of meditation. I'm big on being present. I'm big on becoming one with the universe, with the world, and whatever it is I'm doing. Something else that I've become over the last 15 years is a major reader. I read voraciously. I'm a continuous learner. I'm always looking for new creative ways to impact the players that I work with. But I'm also always looking for ways to enhance my lifestyle and empower my life so that I can become the ultimate Iren that I could be. So those two things are probably the main things that I do on a daily basis that people probably aren't aware of.
So that's a good segue to another observation of mine. Obviously, I follow you on social media.
Definitely.
I don't know if you're on Twitter, sir, but I follow you on Instagram. I follow you on Facebook.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm one of your followers. But I know that one of the things they use as a hashtag, and I think it's more your personal branding now, is the Iron Rainey System.
Definitely.
So would you say that part of the Iron Rainey System is maybe those kind of inner found aspects of meditation that you bring upon your life that you try to engender on other people, maybe just a certain value system that you bring in into these practices and sessions that you do with people? Would you say that that's the Iron Rainey System in and of itself, or part of it?
Definitely. So many people think, basketball training, and they think the physical components. The Iron Rainey System is based on identifying and connecting with the internal, the mental side of the game, which ultimately is the game. It's the game of basketball, but it's also the game of life. And so what we've done through our system is figure out, how to empower, how to enhance each and every one of our players' lives through the conduit of basketball, so that they can become the ultimate basketball player. The game of basketball is based on confidence. So I should say that not the game of basketball, but performance within the game of basketball. It's based on, being confident. And it's also based on being able to play with instincts. You play with instincts through building habits. And so the main thing is helping our players understand how to identify with the habits of being elite and being exceptional and being unstoppable on a consistent basis. And that all starts with the internal dialogue, that takes place within every one of our players.
Having witnessed a lot of your practices at different levels, and because you've been so gracious to allow me and some of the young men that I've sponsored into your practices in the past to even witness professional basketball players' practices, I've always felt like you have this sort of knack for not really conforming to the age of the person that you're training or the level that they're at, but somehow you're able to bring this value system into a 5-year-old as you are a 15-year-old as you are a professional.
Right.
I'd like to maybe have you elaborate a little bit. Do you really sort of maybe tailor your approach to the 5-year-old any different than say the adult? Or, how is it that you're able to bridge those gaps so easily?
Honestly, it's a pretty arduous thing to explain, but the biggest thing that I think that you probably witnessed is my ability to connect, and not just my ability to connect, but also witnessing some of those players that you've seen, take the connection and connect back. Different age groups require, different levels of training based on their overall awareness. But ultimately, it's really about just helping them realize who they are, and who they can be based on identifying with proper habits, right training on their mindset, and the right internal dialogue. Ultimately, that's what it's all about. So
I've heard you use the term before, affirmation.
Absolutely.
Can you elaborate a little bit for our viewers on that word?
Definitely. Affirmation to me is extremely powerful. There's so many of us, especially as adults, that set goals, and for the most part, most of us don't ever achieve those goals because, once again, we haven't identified with the habits that help us achieve those goals. And so we're always looking to, get there without actually knowing how to get there. And when you think about goals, it also shows a lack, which internally, you've already told yourself you don't have those things. Affirmation to me is actually affirming in the now who you desire to be, and actually walking it, talking it, and interacting with the world as if you're already this person. And once again, it goes back to habits. So if you do that on a consistent basis, ultimately you become the person whom you've identified with over the course of 6 months or 12 months, as opposed to thinking that you don't have a thing and you need to do all these things to get it. You just become it because it just means that much more to you right now.
So it's sort of like basically being immersed in the dream versus aspiring for it.
Immerse is the perfect word.
Yeah, so you're in it, you're doing it every day, you're working towards it.
Exactly.
More so, living in the now, living in the present.
Correct.
Towards that you say you want to become, but you're sort of little by little becoming.
Exactly.
Talk to me a little bit about, again, following, there's one particular post that you did on Instagram that I've shared with you on the phone and text and otherwise that I found perfectly profound, and I think it sort of ties a lot into what you've already mentioned. But if you can pick the picture in and of itself is around you centered around a whole bunch of young men and women, I believe it was, on the basketball floor, and you talk about how it's a lot easier to build a strong child than it is to repair a broken adult. That hit home, right to the chest. To me, I found it incredibly profound. And part of the reason why, I was so much looking for, my affirmation and sort of initially where I want to be, having you, sitting down across from me is because of those types of posts. So can you tell me, again, I know you've sort of alluded as to the why, but I want you to maybe dig a little bit deeper. Why is that so important to you to sort of engender those positive images to the youth in particular?
Right. Great question. The first thing is the youth are the next up and coming generation who are ultimately going to be taking care of us. So we need them to be, better citizens of society, and just overall, better human beings. The conduit of basketball is my platform to really reach those kids and reach those people. The majority of the kids that we train or that we develop will never ever play in the NBA and probably not, play in college. I tell, all the parents and the kids, I give them the statistics about the percentages, and I always tell them, about 1% of people in the world end up playing college basketball. So that kind of, hits home for them. But the most
Not even the NBA.
not even right.
Yeah,
That's
college
just
basketball.
That's just
right.
college. The NBA percentages go down, even more. But anyway, the main, thing for me in posting that, is based on seeing kids, identifying kids. And if you look at our generation now, if you look at our society, everything is a now, society. Kids don't know how to interact. They don't know how to have, conversations. They don't converse with each other. And one of the most significant things that I found is that kids have a limited belief system, but they also don't understand how to get through adversity. And so those same kids end up becoming adults. And because they haven't, identified with the right types of habits to overcome adversity, they end up, lashing out or end up, losing their mind or reverting to drugs or, hiding behind social media and devices and end up not having, a positive impact on the world. And those are the people who end up having, the mental disorders because they haven't learned how to cope. And so what we've done is utilize our platform once again within the game of basketball to really connect with each and every one of our clients, especially the youth, because ultimately, we want them to be phenomenal human beings and producers in society.
Through and through.
Through and through, yeah. Instead of just being, adults that you have to cope with and, be placed on, different types of drugs so that they can cope with, everyday life.
So just to expound on the mental performance aspect of it, I know that in following your social media, as I said that I've done over the past couple of years, one of the things that you feature and highlight, not only influencer, but also mental performance strategist. Can you kind of maybe expand a little bit on, how you use that with, say, professionals? Let's start there. I know we've talked a little bit about the younger person, but how do you use that tool to take that professional elite level player, which is already, at a level that outwardly somebody like me may say, but boy, they're already a success. What is it that they're missing? But only they know. They come to you and say, well, now make me an all-star caliber player while playing professionally, which I know you've done. So what is it that you see in that person when you take them for a period of months and months and months that you figure, this is what we need to harp on? Because it's usually never a skill set situation. A lot of it is between the ears.
Definitely. There's a bunch of different scenarios, and I can just apply this, to just regular people in everyday life, right? But I have this famous quote that says, we can't allow external circumstances to control, manipulate, and dictate our reality. On a positive side of things, where you're making, millions of dollars, and you just identify with that. And then on the negative side of things, where you may not be as successful as you like. You can't allow the external circumstance to control, manipulate, and dictate your life. And so the main thing that I do with them, once again, is help them win the battle from within. Oftentimes, when things are going exceptionally well, they identify with that for a brief period. But as soon as something goes wrong, they don't really know how to dig themselves out, right? And you'll hear commentators talk about, such and such is in a shooting slump.
Right.
Well, a shooting slump is simply a belief system. You hear it, and you believe that you're in a slump. And so the goal is, once again, to not even, and this is where it gets deep, right? And so follow me on this one. Most people, when they want to achieve an outcome, they identify with the outcome. What I do is help them forget about the outcome and kind of get to a place of no mind by identifying with the habits that help them achieve the outcome. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you think about, if I asked you to, tie your shoe, you don't go down, to your shoe and say, okay, I'm tying my shoe. I got to put this one over this hand, and it just happens, right? So the goal is, once again, to just help them get to a place of identifying with the right habits so that they can play with no mind. Obviously, they're having to perform in front of millions of people on the screen and off the screen, and everybody has an opinion, right? Think about LeBron. When he's playing well, they hate him. When he's not playing well, they, a lot of times they still hate him. And the people that love him, love him when it's going well, but if he's not, they hate him. So ultimately, it's up to him to really, once again, remember who he is by talking to himself and winning the battle from within.
Mm-hmm. I want to have a sort of maybe a tangent type question, but since you mentioned Mr. LeBron James, I want to kind of talk about a little bit of a stigma. Right now, you are a professional athlete, professional trainer. You're in the athletic realm, and I know for somebody like a LeBron James in the past, in the not too distant past, actually. There was a sort of label of him either in social activism or political activism going into opining and being told to shut up and dribble.
Right.
So with you in the Iron Rainey system, you clearly dissuade from that,
Right.
in that you're not just offering. What do you have to say about that? You're obviously not doing just basketball, but using the platform of basketball for so much more. Can you tag along some sort of thoughts that come to mind?
Behind the LeBron James.
Yeah, and sort of that sort of stigma that, hey, you're an athlete, you're a jock, stick to what you know, and somehow that our opinions or the athlete's opinions are not necessarily as founded somehow.
Right. Well, unequivocally, I can honestly say everybody, has an opinion, right? And everybody wants everybody wants somebody else to live the way that they want them to live. They want them to talk the way that they want them to talk. They want them to agree with the things that they want them to agree with. So I personally commend LeBron, for stepping outside of the bubble, for stepping outside of his comfort zone, through his platform, to say some things that ultimately will have a pretty significant impact. The reality of it is the people at the top, that control, manipulate, and dictate, oftentimes they do want you to shut up and dribble. But when you really look at the game of basketball, there's two options. You can either be limited and, play the game of basketball and just identify with playing basketball and be limited in your conversations and let everybody else control, manipulate, and dictate. Or you can embrace the game of basketball and utilize it as a resource to become a better person, to become an overall better human being, to really get to a place where you can grow and have a bigger impact. And I think LeBron has utilized the game of basketball and made it a resource to reach the masses of people and help them become aware of something that is so important.
And to use it as a true platform for the
Definitely.
better good, not just for entertainment, but more holistically.
Definitely.
So I'd like to use this part of the segment, Iron, so that you can connect with our audience, with our viewers directly. And, going back to the topic of purpose again, and one of the reasons why we're doing this series of segments more internally is because I've been fraught with that internal turmoil between the ears of, am I living a purposeful
Right.
life? Am I missionally minded? Am I doing things that are coherent with my own sort of gifts and passions, etc.?
Hmm.
With that being said, I don't think I'm the only one.
No, not at all.
So there's folks in midlife crisis, closer to my age, maybe folks that are at the collegiate level, that are pondering a changing career, or maybe the high school student that has to make all sorts of determinations and decisions that they're not ready to make, and they feel like they're sort of at odds with themselves. Can you speak to those folks and kind of tell them, what younger Iron would want to hear, uh, or just anybody that you can sort of associate dealing with that? What could you impart them with?
Absolutely. I read a book probably 3 or 4 years ago by Jeff Olson. And that book is called The Slight Edge. And everybody has this, esoteric belief of what success is. And most of us, have an insatiable desire to be successful. We just don't know how to get there. And when certain things happen, we end up, losing sight of the thing that we're designed to get to. So our will becomes not indomitable, right? We become limited. Um, in the book, Jeff Olson talks about how success is taking a small series of daily disciplines and doing those things consistently over time. I have a famous quote that says, simplify your life, right? And simplicity is excellence. The reason why most of us fail is because we always try to hit a home run as opposed to building, our house brick by brick and layer by layer. So one of the most important things that I can recommend for anyone that's going through something is to first, write down the vision that you want for yourself, or not that you want, the vision that you have a desire for yourself, and you know, try to figure out one or two people, that are living kind of similar to that vision, and mimic them. Read about some of the things they do on a daily basis. Write down some of the things that they write down. Spend time doing some of the things that they spend time doing, which ultimately will have a profound effect on the outcome that you're looking to achieve. The problem is so many of us, once again, identify with the bad habits, which is a natural thing. But the more and more we can identify with the small things on a daily basis that help us overachieve or exceed expectations, the more successful we'll be, the happier we become, and the better we are ultimately as human beings, husbands, fathers, wives, teachers, influencers, etc. So, yeah, that's one of the probably most profound pieces of advice that I could give to anyone that's going through something currently.
And this is our part of our segment. Thank you for that, by the way. That was deeply profound, and that's what I enjoy about our segments is that I come out with all sorts of gems and wisdoms as well. And I'm sure all of y'all are also benefiting from this. And I sincerely hope that this is all for the viewer. So I'm sincerely hoping that you really some of these things connect, because at the end of the day, that's what this is for. But we want to use this part of the segment as well to now promo some of your activities, sir.
Definitely.
So I know you have a lot of other personal projects going on, basketball and otherwise, and I'd like for you, obviously, to share with our viewers what those things are, what they can be looking forward to. Maybe if they don't know you, or somebody out there that may not be familiar with your Instagram feeds and social media platform, etc., clue them in on what those are.
Definitely. My Instagram is Iren Rainey. Just my first and last name is spelled Iren. Last name Rainey, spelled Rainey. Right now, we do monthly training sessions or skill development sessions on Mondays and Wednesdays, ranging from ages or from grades 5th grade all the way throughout the 11th grade. And also, we have youth basketball teams ranging from 6th grade on up to 11th grade. So if that's something that anyone is looking to be a part of, make sure you call me at 407-408-2939, or send us an email at ironraineyglobal@gmail.com. One of the other things that I'm excited about, Caesar, is my book that we're working on as we speak. that's basically there to educate, inspire, enlighten. The people that like the game of basketball, coaches that want to become better coaches, the parent that just doesn't, know how to help their child, son or daughter achieve and exceed expectations or make their basketball team. And there's some other people who are a little bit more intense, that want their kid to play in college. And so what that book is going to do is give them a blueprint, and open up some doors on how to achieve some of those things, in a practical way.
And with that, our segment comes to closure. I'd like to first thank our guest, Mr. Iren Rainey, for your time, sir.
Thanks for
for
having
your
me.
wisdom, for your friendship, and for really partnering with us on this movement that is to inspire. I feel like you've been doing that for the span of 10 years that I've known you. You know what I feel towards you, and it's nothing but respect and admiration. And again, just very thankful for you to take this time and leave us with so many nuggets.
Yep. Thanks for the opportunity.
And for our viewers, thank you again for tuning in for another segment of Inspire Movement. It's an honor and a privilege that you're taking time out of your busy lives to actually tune in. We're hoping to do a lot of segments like this, hopefully many others with Mr. Iren Rainey. He has a lot to offer. And feel free to contact him, please, not only for basketball, but for other things, basketball. And in terms of purpose, we have, I think, a little bit different take than what we had in our previous segments. But affirmation is something that sticks to my mind. Not only focusing on the overriding vision, but also taking it step by step, as Iren alluded to very eloquently, brick by brick building that house, not expecting to be living in that mansion that you sort of aspire to be in overnight, but to do it systemically, and you'll get there. And appreciate the process more so than the overriding goal. With that, I'd also like to thank the Dubs Dread Golf Club for allowing us to be so graciously hosted in this beautiful venue. And also the Taps Room at Dubs Dread, which has allowed us to use their courtyard. Mr. Steve and Miss Barbara, thank you so much for your hospitality. Looking forward to tuning in for you guys to tune in again. Again, my name is Caesar, and this is Inspire Movement. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.